think most everybody in the room knows Lisa at some level. She is the reigning Illawarra Women in Businesswoman of the Year. Owns a local business called LBPR, so Lisa Burling Public Relations. Does a little bit of work with us for Breakthrough for Business and uses our ninjas to get things done. Wonderful woman, has got a wonderful story, and she's going to help you today improve your profile so that you can utilise the media to help you get more exposure. So if you wouldn't mind standing up and giving Lisa Burling a big round of applause.
You don't need to do that. Oh, woo! Thank you. I have to share up front, I love Kylie Minogue. I have loved Kylie Minogue since I was a little girl. And to stand up here with this on, I'm like, this is what it must feel like to be Kylie Minogue. But I did say to Stephen and Megan, it's very mean to make me follow Gary Vee because he is amazing and everything that comes out of his mouth is just, as Paris said, on point. I'm going to do my best to be on point, but I'm certainly going to be on PR. So I'm really pleased to be here. I sat here this time last year and learnt so much for 2 days. Some people in this room I actually sat with, and it was really awesome. So to be up here to talk about my passion, which is PR, is really lovely. So I know it's after lunch, I know it's Friday, but just stick with me. I promise it'll be worth it. It's 201 apparently. I've completely forgotten the 6. So yeah, that's where my brain is at the moment. Excuse me, it's not great for a PR person, is it? But I love that quote from Bill Gates, and people who know me and have seen me talk know that I tend to quote older men when it comes to PR and comms, but he's absolutely right. PR is one of the most useful parts of the marketing mix, especially for small business, and I stand here as a small business too, don't forget. So I will use PR for myself, and I can say that it is incredibly cost effective, and if you get it right, it can have huge benefits for your business. This is me. Stephen's already sort of spoken about it, but my business started 3 years ago. A lot of you will know the story. It wasn't in ideal personal circumstances, and like all of you, I've worked my butt off to achieve what we have. But for you, we have been recognised by the Public Relations Institute of Australia as being best in class, and that means that I stand here as someone who knows what they're talking about. And I've done PR for 20 years, and I've worked with some really big companies both here and overseas. So I'm condensing the media profile building piece into an hour, which is kind of difficult, but you'll get some tricks of the trade and the inside track as to what really works. And my aim is that you can walk out of here and actually implement straight away. We're also home to Catalyst. Some of you might have heard about it. It's an Australian first, which is kind of bizarre to me. And this is an example of a PR opportunity, I guess, where I had an idea about actually housing a student consultancy within my own consultancy with final year PR students. And it turns out nobody else has actually done that before. Universities have consultancies on campus, but not off within industry. So there's some of the students that we work with, and it's certainly an example of how you can create something to generate noise about your business and ultimately contribute to your brand equity. We work with clients all over Australia and one internationally. As I said, I have worked overseas, so I have contacts there. But when we talk about PR and we talk about media, we deal with local media obviously, but most of our clients we're dealing with national media. And we have achieved exposure for them on all those places and more. So again, what I'm telling you is stuff that will work right now. It's a really fast-paced environment. I've seen a lot of change, particularly in the last 2 to 3 years with social media, but that's really good news for you because it means you don't necessarily have to work quite so hard to get journalists to notice what it is that you're trying to sell them. So first, some explanations. It's kind of difficult to jump straight into media without explaining to you a little bit about what PR is, and unfortunately when someone gives me a microphone and a stage, I take the opportunity to just do a little bit of PR 101 because it is one of those disciplines where people don't really know what it is. I've been called a spin doctor, a publicist, an agent, all those sort of things, and yes, they do, I guess, fall under that banner, but for me, public relations really stands for partnerships and relationships, and when you look at it that way, it actually opens up to all sorts of things that you can do that fall within that scope. Basically, I'm a dealer in words. So words to a PR person, and when you're doing PR, words are like numbers to an accountant. I hate numbers. A spreadsheet makes me feel sick. I've done Excel training about 5 times and I just can't get it. But I imagine that when I see a beautiful sentence or a great paragraph, that's how an accountant feels when all the numbers add up. So if you love words and you love reading and that sort of thing, then you're going to excel at doing PR because that's ultimately what it is. It's not that. And when I went to uni 20 years ago, I thought it might be. And that was really exciting because, gosh, it looked fun with champagne and parties. And I think I was just a little bit too late for that. So no, it's definitely not parties and having fun all the time. And it's definitely not that too. Anyone that's watched Bridget Jones will know that she has a job in a company where she is told by the boss, Daniel Cleaver, that she should go back to fanning about with the press releases. And often people will assume that as PR people, all we do is fanny about with press releases. And we certainly do some of that, but I've seen that change as well in the last probably 2 to 3 years in terms of the amount of press releases we're generating. We're doing a lot more work with digital agencies, with bloggers, because content is now being driven by us as much as it's being driven by journalists. So there's lots of opportunities, I've said. Remember, PR is everywhere, and I actually took this from a Kiama real estate agent brochure that landed in my letterbox, and they had described their receptionist as the director of first impressions, and I just thought that was absolute gold, because if PR is about the impression that you give and the impact that you have, then the minute you pick up the phone or somebody does on your behalf, you're PRing your business. And we can all think of examples where an email response has been tardy or not what we'd expected, or the person on the other end of the phone or in person at reception hasn't been great. That's PR in action. So when you think about PR, please start to broaden your mind and realise it's not just a case of getting something in the local paper, it's every single touch point that your customer has with your business. You're doing it right now. In this room, you've all had conversations, you've spoken about what you've done, you will all walk out of here with an impression of each other. So again, you're PRing your business every day, inevitably. So why do you do PR? Well, first of all, you do it because you want to create awareness of what you're doing, and it can operate in isolation. The marketing mix is very broad. It includes advertising, direct marketing, direct-to-consumer activities, but ultimately PR can really drive awareness if you do it well. And you want to change behaviour. You're selling something, whether it's yourself or a product, so you want to make sure that you're doing it in a way that's going to make people pick up the phone or go onto your website and order, or whatever it is, attend an event. And ultimately it's going to turn it into cash, and that's what it's about, when the cash ultimately allows you to do either more things for your business or do the things that you love. So that's the power of PR, in my view. It's not advertising, and that is a really common question that I get. Oh, isn't it just like advertising? The best way to describe it is this picture, where advertising is what you say about yourself, whereas PR is what other people say about you. And the argument is that because someone else is saying it, that it's more valuable. So that's why PR can be really effective for small business. And of course, I couldn't not have a quote from Richard Branson. Anyone who knows me or follows my company knows that I'm completely obsessed with the man, and he will be here next year. But he's right, and PR story is far more effective than an ad, just because of that credibility piece, that you've managed to get somebody else to say what a great job you're doing or how great your product or service is. And this is a really great way to show you the difference. So we do work with the tourism organisations up and down the South Coast, which is a lovely product to have to talk to national media about. But on this side, the free side, that's what an editorial looks like. So it actually goes into some depth around the things that you can do down in the Shoalhaven. And that was the result of a journalist actually going down there and visiting and experiencing it. On this side is an ad, and that was actually a billboard in Sydney at Central train station, which cost, you can imagine, tens of thousands of dollars. So you could argue that the PR piece is actually more valuable because we read it and we see things that we can do. This was for parenting media, and we actually want to go there and experience it. So, but they work really well together. They both have a job to play. One bit of advice before we go into the nitty-gritty of how you can maximise media for your business: always give PR a solid anchor. And I know for the businesses that have gone through the Breakthrough for Business bootcamp, and those of you that have been here for the last 2 days, you will have some sort of business plan. Don't see PR as something you bolt on at the end or it's not really linked. It absolutely is. And I'm very happy to share this slide, or Stephen may do that anyway, so you can start to think about, these are my business goals and objectives, and this is the role that PR can play strategically to start to deliver on those. Any questions before I jump in and get you motoring? Stunned you all into silence. All right, so we're going to do 3 steps today. And the first one is about finding media stories within your business. I'm going to ask you a question. Who in this room thinks that they have a media story right now, ready to go? If I was from the Illawarra Mercury and called you and said, what have you got? Who's got something? What have you got? Fabulous. In what? What was that?
After taking water and student walks.
Brilliant. Congratulations, you are the first person in all the workshops I've run who's actually said to me they've got a PR story ready to go. Most people just think they haven't, but they absolutely do, and that's a great one. That's got all sorts of opportunities. So did you do something with it, or? Yep. Awesome. In fact, I've seen it. It's on the Mercury website. And
Yeah, internal and external marketing strategy, that one.
Fantastic.
We put it back to our staff.
Yeah.
To tell everybody, yeah, we are doing really great. And externally, to tell the market that we're doing really great as well.
fantastic.
Don't go artwork. Nah. You're a rock star.
We'll come back to the artwork because I'm going to get you to do some stuff. So most people think they've got empty pockets when it comes to PR. I'm here to tell you that all of you have at least 3 media stories in your business right now, and I'm going to get them out of you in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So I've done this before quite a few times with groups of this size, and no word of a lie, we've had 100 stories. Now, of course, some of them need a little bit of finessing and bits and pieces to pull together, but they are all there. So who's ready? Gonna do it? Yep, let's go. All right. The good news is there's a formula. So there is a way to present information to journalists and a way to find the hook that they're going to go to and a way to get them to actually do it. And I'm going to share that with you. It's very formulaic, so there's not too many variations on the theme. Thank you. How do we get the media's attention? Tonight when you go home and you're watching the news or you're listening to the radio news or you're on a website or whatever it is, I want you to think about this, because every single story falls into one of these buckets. Topicality, impact, big or small, big numbers, little numbers, achievement and success, which is exactly what you've just spoken about. Local focus, again, what you've spoken about. Emotion, something new, something now, and that's a really clever strategy we'll talk a little bit more about for you. What's happening in the national space that you can piggyback and get some exposure for yourself with. And there's 3 buckets that it falls into, inevitably. And I always say journalists are like fish. You just throw a line in and you keep throwing a line in and eventually you will find something that sticks. But my job today is to make sure you don't have to keep throwing the line in. You only have to do it once and you'll get a bite. But there's the brand story, creating a story, and then piggyback opportunities. So we're going to go through each of them, and for each of them you are going to have a think about your own business and come up with one idea, which is why I said you'll each have 3 stories by the end of 10 minutes. So a brand story is a new product, a new service, a business launch, a new business stream, or a personnel change. Now there could be other things that fit within those, but that's generally speaking the themes that tend to be highlighted when it comes to media coverage. I'm going to show you some examples of local businesses, because I know when you go to these things, the last thing you want is to see examples of national companies with lots of money and go, but that's not me. So I'm going to show you businesses right here in the Illawarra who have come up with stories that have got media exposure that fit under brand story, but you must start thinking about yourselves because you're going to do it in a couple of minutes. Personnel change. This was a little while ago, but the Novotel North Beach had their main man go and someone else come into the fold. So that is a really exciting story for the local area. Yes, it is the Novotel, it is a slightly bigger business, but think about people that are in your business or even yourself. Do you have someone coming from another region, someone from another culture, longer serving employee, newest employee, ages, internships, even you, and Paris over there is actually going to be in the Sydney Weekender on the weekend. So there's a great example of someone who is going to have a profile piece as a result of who she is. So don't ever underestimate the power of you when it comes to PR in your business. this story I really loved. It was for the New South Wales Police Force, but it was Illawarra based, and these two police officers were both teachers and then decided that they wanted to join the police force. And the lovely thing about it was the PR person or whoever internally had made this lovely link between the kind of skills you need to manage children and the kind of skills you might need when you go into the police force to manage naughty adults. So it was a really, really nice story, but great positive PR for the police force, who, as we know, often are not necessarily dealing with things in such a positive light. So there's just a couple of thought starters for you to think about how that could work for your business. Awards and recognition, which we've just spoken about. So Tim Gray is a local financial planner. He actually happens to be my cousin, but he won Hill Ross's national award a couple of months ago, and recently had that covered. So within your industry, there's awards, and I know there's some people in here who have entered local awards and done very well, and your example is a great one. So awards are funny things. Some people love them and some people hate them, but even if you are in it, that within itself can be a story if you can dress it up in a way that has some interest. On this side, I don't usually hop in the stories with my clients, but we happen to be an event. This is a beautiful lady called Penelope or Penny Magro. Some of you may know her. She's a local interior designer, and she won a publicly voted award with a national organisation called House, where people said that what she did was awesome and they loved her, and that's pretty much PR in action as well. A whole heap of people saying how great she was. So she got some local exposure as a result of that, and I know for her, the inquiry she got for her business skyrocketed after that article went in, to the point where she actually had to employ someone to help her. So that's a really great example. So over to you. You have got 1 minute to come up with one story that fits in that for your business. I'm going to pick two people to tell us what it is. No escaping. Okay, that's it. Thanks. All right. Sharon. Yep. What have you got?
Well, I don't have a new product, I don't have a new service or any of those, so it basically had to come back to me.
Yep.
And I guess me, as far as I am a virtual assistant who likes to sit at home, talk to no one and stay on my computer, I've now stepped up and is running the local networking event.
Perfect. You running the local networking event is the story. Excellent. Gentleman in the hat.
That was really hard. We just launched a new paintball site, so we had an existing one.
Yep.
So to rebrand and create something new, but it was a dormant site in an area that we polished new and brought it back to life and brought some new technology into it. Yeah.
Fantastic. And the other thing to think about with any story is photos. So is there a picture attached to this that we can offer, or some moving vision, particularly for TV? So that's awesome. Good job. What about that? Jane? Kate? Sorry, Kate?
We just bought a new office and we're moving inside. I think there's got an office launch happening. It's a new proactive soft tissue injury and post-traumatic stress disorder program that we're going to be offering.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, those two things.
That's awesome. Great. At this front table. Lady in the pink. Don't look down.
I'm doing it at the site.
Are you? Okay.
HR processes.
You're Karen. I recognise your face from online. That's cool. That's great. What about over here? What have you got, Sarah?
Well, we both Penny's Award, because I've actually won 2 of those, but I never...
No! Okay, we have to enter again. But yeah, similar business, so there's lots of opportunities for you to do that. And people love those stories because it's so visual what you do, so that's a really clear opportunity for you. All right, well done. So we've got, there's 4 or 5 stories swimming around already. That's great. Okay, create a story. And this is probably where people like me spend the bulk of our time, habitation, in terms of living, if you like, with clients, because they don't always have something ready to go. And brand stories sometimes can cross that line into being a bit more advertising focused. So there's a whole heap of stuff, and the list is certainly longer than this, but I just wanted to capture some of the key ones for you. Surveys are great, and again, if you read the paper or look on websites, you'll see so much content is driven by percentage of people said X about X, and we all love it. We love analysing ourselves. So, and you can do that really cost effectively if you have a database of people that you can ask. We're not talking about, you know, thousands of dollars to do that. So bear in mind what you have at your fingertips already in terms of databases and information that you can use for PR. Events, and that can be not you creating an event, it can be being at an event. So we've just had Australia's biggest morning tea for example. There's Cupcake Day for the RSPCA. You know, there's all sorts of things that go on that you can be a part of without too much expense. Sponsorships, so your business might sponsor the local footy team or, you know, an event of some sort. That's a great opportunity. Opposing views is a fantastic one, and something that we always say to our clients is, you know, if you sit on the fence, you get one thing, and that's splinters. And there's a reason why certain companies are elevated above the others, and it's because they stand for something. You know, you look at the Virgins of this world, or even, you know, Virgin as in Richard Branson, or lost my train of thought. Or Donald Trump, for example. Now, he's crazy, right? But that man stands for something, and don't people love it? So I'm not suggesting that you go out there and be completely crazy, but be brave and have an opinion on things that are related to your industry, because that then positions you as an expert as well. Anniversaries. Has anyone got an anniversary coming up for their business? Yes? What years? 2? Yep. Awesome. So that's always exciting. You know, you can do something around that. That's a really obvious one. And photos. You know, there's businesses in here that I know will already have amazing photo opportunities. So sometimes, you know, a picture can tell 1,000 words, and you look on websites and, you know, even radio stations and TV stations who have websites, they're all looking for vision and for social media. So don't discount the power of the picture. I'll just talk you through a couple of examples. So this is another local business called Ruland. Some of you may know Suzanne. She's based at Taraji, very eco-friendly in terms of her business values, does a lot of graphic design, actually did my logo. And she and I were having a conversation one day, and she was talking about all this stuff she had in a drawer around how to be environmentally friendly when it comes to design and print. So she had guidelines around cutting edges when you print things, what type of paper to use, suppliers locally who instill the values that she has in terms of being kind to the environment. And I was looking at it all going, we could turn this into something, we could create something out of this. So being a graphic designer, she actually compiled all the information, triaged it into particular headings around printing and sourcing paper and disposal of recyclable materials, and came up with a campaign with me where we called it, I'm trying to remember what we called it. It had a really funky name. It was a couple of years ago now. But it was a booklet people could download. And the trick was, to download it, you had to enter your details and then you could get it. So she was actually doing data capture as a result. It got picked up by the local media. She actually got a couple of clients as a result of that, but she also had a heap of people who then understood what her business was, what she stood for, and it looked like she was, you know, helping businesses, which she was, but it also was helping her business. So have a look around your office and, you know, the people in your office, think, what have we got in here that we could turn into something that could help others, enable us to connect with businesses who are like-minded, because that's what we want as well. I know certainly with my business, we don't say yes to everyone that walks through the door, because we want to work with people who understand what we do and the value that we have. So that's a great way to make sure that happens. Another example, I actually was just online last week having a look and seeing what was happening in terms of anniversaries and whatever else. This is the Kiama Independent, which is not printed anymore, but they still have their website. And the Fireys down there had an anniversary of 75 years, which is really, really amazing. But that's not to discount 2 years or 5 years. I certainly celebrate my business anniversary every year, because as a small business, I think if you've done another year of business, you deserve a massive pat on the back. But people love that. They love anniversaries and records and things that are linked to numbers. So you'll all have something in your business along those lines, I'm sure. And I also found this is up north, this is not local, but Australia's biggest morning tea is quite topical. We've just this week and, you know, the week before had them happening here locally. And up in Hervey Bay, they actually just got a massive mug. Someone made a massive mug. This is a water park, one of the local businesses, and they just started passing it around to businesses. It's such a stupid thing really, but if you go and have a look for that mug, it's been pretty much everywhere and they all got behind it, and that's the power of a local community. You know, someone has a great idea and everyone, all the good people, get behind it. So think about things like Australia's Biggest Morning Tea, Daffodil Day, even Christmas, Mother's Day, Father's Day. There's always things that you can hook your business onto with the stories that you have to tell. So it's over to you again, another minute. I want you to think of one thing. Now remember, we're creating a story here. So you might not have something right now, but hopefully you've got enough in your head to give you some ideas about what it might be. So 1 minute, that's it. Now I'm looking for volunteers this time. I'm looking for one person from every table. He's feeling brave. We'll start at this table. And to celebrate, you're going to go to Disneyland, Pirates of the Caribbean. Excellent. And you're going to take all your customers with you. And well, hey, but you could celebrate your anniversary on Talk Like a Pirate Day and kind of link it all together. Yes, you could. Absolutely. What a lovely photo as well. You could all like stand in the shape of a fire or something. Yeah, okay, good. I like it. It's got potential.
Okay, well, two things. We've got a relaunch coming up. So for our business, it's been like maybe 10, 40 years since they did a rebrand. And also they're celebrating 40th anniversary coming up. So
that's big.
Yeah. So.
And your Nowcam is a very recognisable business.
Yeah.
So locally.
Yeah.
So yeah, and where Lauren works, it's a great example of how is he CEO or?
Yeah, managing director.
Yeah, John has got a really fantastic local profile, as have you. So that shows how staff can contribute to the PR story for a brand as well. I think whatever Nowcam came out with, you'd be welcomed.
I remember from our last workshop, Elisa guided us a really good direction. We actually got some publications in some like national trade magazines after you visit us. So a lot of the things, a lot of the strategies and advice you gave us actually was really beneficial to get national recognition of what we're really achieving. So this was good.
Yeah, PR in action. Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, poor Lauren sat through some of this before, but yes, that's a really great example. 45 minutes, right? That'll be you.
I've got three different stories. Sponsorship of Kids Wish Bridge to Bridge Walk. So I'm sort of involved in that.
Great.
The 4-year anniversary coming up.
Congratulations.
Another one. And photos, can do sort of job completion transformation of being a builder sort of thing from this to this.
So what do you do now?
A builder.
And what were you doing? Or what was the transformation piece, sorry?
Oh, someone's house.
Oh, right, sorry. I thought you meant you personally. I'm like, he's gone for something to say. Right, yeah, I know. That's an amazing story. Wow. But yes, no, that is a very, very good story, actually, because we actually do some work with GJ Gardner, and one of the stories that we got for them recently was around knockdown rebuild and showing the crappy house they start with and then this amazing thing that comes afterwards. And we all love before and afters, whether it's houses, people, whatever, haircuts. So yeah, that's a really, really good one. Excellent. So you got 3. Awesome.
Oh, you can. We're tossing up here.
Okay, well you're all going to have to go, so.
No, mine was introducing our newest client, which was I do Reiki, and so it's in the wellness industry, and our youngest client was my sister's baby, and then when it was born, and so it just, the age difference between the newest, which is, a newborn, and my oldest, which is 98 years. So
that is fantastic. You can just see an amazing photo with that, and also it's kind of surprising because when you think of Reiki, you don't necessarily think that, well, a 98-year-old would be into it for a start, but with a baby that it would even be appropriate. So there's a real education message there. That's a really good one. You just got to think about where you can hook it if there's something going on, like a natural health week or something where that would be relevant, but I really like that one. Excellent. All right, Will, what have you got?
I haven't got anything about my business, but related to it, talking about when my clients are all overseas.
Yes, I do.
Okay, it's regarding moving from an El Nino situation where we've been the last 3 years into La Nina, so this is the global weather pattern. And in Australia, in El Nino, the weather's usually pretty mellow, and then in La Nina is when you get like all the big winter storms and all the cyclones, and we're moving into that phase now, so we project that for the next year. And that's,
Does everyone know what you do?
I think they do by now.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it, but that's a massive thing in my industry, and that everyone's going to lose money in the next year, which makes them want to buy my model. So it's probably a good thing to advertise.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, you're an expert. So media will want to talk to you. We always say that journalists know a little bit about a lot of things, and that's why you are all so important, because you know a lot about your thing. So the angle for you, Will, is to go in as an expert on weather patterns and the impact that it has, and then you bolster that with your sell around your business. But, you know, everyone's interested in weather. I mean, how much time do we dedicate talking to weather? You know, the weather app kind of guides my life pretty much. So, yeah, I think you've got a massive opportunity, and what you're doing is so particular and niche. So lots of opportunity. Okay, so we came up with some more. So see, it's not that hard. If you just think about it, you've all got stuff going on. Okay, so the final bucket is to piggyback a news trend, and this is probably my favourite as a small business person, because it makes it a lot easier for us. We don't have to create the noise because it's already happening. We just have to think, okay, how could I make this work for me? And I know that the journalists that work in this area and down in the Shoalhaven in regional areas are looking at the national news trends and looking for that local angle. So again, start to look at the media and what's happening, and you'll see this cropping up time and time again. I'll give you some examples, but right now, if anyone's working in the finance industry, we're talking about elections, end of financial year, that's a really obvious thing. Weather is one that's always on the cards when it comes to media, days, week, months, national news. So even watch the news tonight and give yourself a challenge to come up with something that's in the national news bulletin that you can then use for yourself. So this is an example of a local business, Wendy Lee Fashions in Auburn Street. She's a fashion designer, amazing stuff, such a creative lady, a real hidden gem of our city. And she and I worked together a couple of years ago on a campaign linked to Australia's Next Top Model. So she said to me that she wanted to find a face of the business, but she didn't want the face to be, you know, the typical early 20s, thin, you know, younger model, because that's not her market. She's really looking at women in their 40s and over, and things that are appropriate, you know, for women that have had kids and all that sort of stuff. So we had a chat, and Australia's Next Top Model was really topical. Everyone was talking about it. Charlotte Dawson was being quite vocal on various things. There were a lot of very skinny girls in that particular series. So we talked about having this opposing view and doing something quite surprising, if you like, and it was that actually this was a model search, but it was pretty much diametrically opposed to what was happening in the national stage. Now, as it turns out, Wendy had actually already found the lady that she wanted to use, but this is where the smoke and mirrors and perception is reality thing comes into play. We pretended like she was looking, and she actually did have some women come in who she ended up using in various campaigns. But the media loved it because it was actually a continuing story. So the first bit was around, you know, we're launching this model search. The second one was around, we found the person, and then it just kind of carried on. And the reason I love the Wendy story so much is she doesn't need people like me anymore. I was like her training wheels to help her write the media releases and craft it and pitch it appropriately, which is what I'm going to teach you in a minute. But she actually just went on and did it herself, and now she has an amazing relationship with local media and actually has got some exposure in national wedding magazines and that sort of thing. So it's just the way you look at it, and a bit of thought can go a long way. And this is what it looked like. So look, that first picture, I mean, she's in her studio, and again, a lovely visual story, but you can't get better branding than that. And this is Belinda, the lady that won the search, and then they did follow-ups on her new fashion range. So we actually went into really branded editorial PR as a result. But the media loved her because she gave them what they wanted. She was very eloquent. She knows the stuff. Her credentials are out of this world, and I know all of you will have similar credentials. So we then thought, well, let's just take it nationally to wedding magazines, and off we went. And she had some amazing coverage in there as well because she does mother of the bride outfits. So I'm talking about local media a lot, and I'm doing that because I want it to feel tangible, but please don't discount the value of what you have to offer national media. You know, I'm a huge believer in putting your dreams out there and, you know, going as high as you can, because, you know, everything you're doing has merit outside of this particular region. And this is a localising a national story. So I don't know if you remember, and this tends to crop up a lot, cafes saying that they don't want kids. You know, they're not child friendly. Don't bring your babies and your toddlers in here, pretty much. And that's back to the opposing view and sitting on the fence and, you know, getting splinters. These people are like, no, we don't want them in here. And of course, controversy, you know, was everywhere and social media went crazy and, you know, but good on them. They stood for something. And as a result, it's probably a lovely cafe to go to if you don't want to be around small children. But the Beanstalk Cafe in Thirroul caught onto it. Now, I don't know how this story came about. I don't know whether they actually rang the Mercury, and it can be as simple as that, just picking up the phone and going, you know what, we're not child-friendly either. We don't want them here, and we're happy to take the rap for that. So they did it, and they got some amazing coverage as well, not only in the Mercury, but on Win TV. It was on the radio. So balance out whether the controversy is worth the exposure, but who remembers that now? No one really, but they're attracting the clientele that they want. So they don't want people turning up with kids. So it's actually great PR for their core business proposition, if you like. But that's such an easy thing to do. Something to think about. And I've talked about this quite a lot. There it is, Talk Like a Pirate Day. Earth Day, so Suzanne at Ruland is always doing stuff around Earth Day. Mother Earth Day was just on, Earth Hour. She does a lot of things that are around that, and the media have come to expect it from her locally. So it's actually not that hard for her to get noticed in that way. Australia Day is a great one. You know, going back to your employees and your business, we're all Australian owned and operated. You know, there's a lot of focus on small business and the contribution that we make to the economy. Think about how you could maximise that. Valentine's Day. Who doesn't love Valentine's Day? You know, think about your business and what could sit there. There's PJ Day. I don't know when it is, but I have to put it in LBPR straight away. So yeah, just all be in PJs, and if you can get the, you know, the managing director or you, the boss, to do it, well then, you know, it's lots of fun. So media want light-hearted stuff as much as they want the serious stuff. Okay, so over to you. This is the easiest one. So I'm actually expecting you to come up with at least 2 things for this particular bucket. You've got 1 minute. Off you go. Okay. You're the only one on the table I haven't heard from. What have you got? Yep, you.
We just having a quick chat with opening up the garden centre on National Tree Day.
Yes.
Earth Hour, all that kind of stuff.
Yes, you get like little kids planting, get the local school down. Yeah, that's a really nice one. And that's the kind of thing, you know, the Win TVs might be into too. If you can paint a picture of what it could look like, that's a nice one. Excellent.
Well, for me, seasons, I'm a photographer, so
yep.
I can probably provide images of, say, for example, with Gallagher, fashion lady.
Yes.
She's got a range of clothing for summer, autumn, winter,
yes.
spring. I can provide those kind of things.
Excellent.
And then possibly days, months and years. I have a thing that I'm interested in is capturing older people talking about their history and their memories and about life and things like that.
Love that.
Yeah, so on video, and that's something that I'd like to do in a really black and white way, not colour way. And yeah, so it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time.
The personal story is on the rise. People want to know that. We want the everyday heroes and the backstories. And, you know, you see, you know, even UOW have got their faces of UOW. I love reading about that. You make such assumptions based on a photo, and then you read the story and it's beautiful. And that's what PR is, it's storytelling. So I think you would have amazing opportunities with that. It's just working out what you do with what. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Either or.
I've got 2, both very different, both in 2 different industries. The first one was I used to be a manager of a intensive foster care program, and it was very difficult to get foster carers in this, for lack of a word, market. And we used to use Foster Care Week to write stories about it, because everyone, if you're going to become a foster carer, everyone wanted a baby, and all our kids had come from terrible backgrounds with huge issues, so to find those carers was quite difficult and unique, so we were able to run stories of genuine people, and it was really good, so that was powerful.
Yeah.
The other one was a little bit more fun, was Valentine's Day. It just reminded you, we did with conjunction with another group, and you probably find it online, it's been all around the world. It's called Trash to Dress.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
for a lady that got dumped at the altar on Valentine's Day. And she's come out in, it wasn't her exactly, but it was on that story, come out in a dress and got shot up and shot, the other guy was in grooms and they shot each other with paintballs. It was called Trash to Dress.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's gone all around the world. Yeah, that's gone all around the world. It's still used in social media now as number one. Sort of when it comes up to that whole wedding, groom, Valentine's Day, it's the number one pick that comes out.
Yep, that's the power of social media to keep it going. But yeah, have a think about it for your business. What could you do that would kind of get that reaction? The thing with viral is we'll have clients say to us, we want it to go viral. And it's like, well, no one can control viral. Like, it's just going to happen. You know, you can pump as much money into it as you want. Like, people are either going to love it or they're not going to love it. And most of the time what clients think is viral is totally not.
It was the story behind it.
Yeah.
It was just captured about the story, and it was released on Valentine's Day.
Love it.
Yeah.
Actually, there was another one that I noticed on social media. There's a blogger called The Young Mummy, and she got married in a black wedding dress. And I'll talk about this later as well, but media trawl social media looking for stories. One of my friends writes for the Daily Mail, and 80% of their stories come from Facebook. So they're looking for stuff, and they found this girl in this black dress, and her blog just went through the roof to the point where she can actually now monetize it and pay, you know, get sponsors and things like that. But yeah, it can be just the weirdest stuff that people just go crazy for. So good examples. At the back, what have you got?
Yeah, I'm baffled with this one a little bit, but we were thinking, because I work with Kate.
Yep.
So we were thinking, you know, at the holiday seasons they normally speak about road accidents, and maybe link up somewhere with that, because that's what we do, is we rehabilitating people, you know. So that's
Or driving assessments for elderly people, like is your, you know, like a story about that service. So
I was on the Roads and Maritimes website yesterday for another client, and I was looking at some of the stats that they've got online. You raise a really good point. In your industry, go to the associations or professional bodies and see what statistics they're gathering around behaviour and you know, things like, you know, road crashes. Is there a particular time of year where they tend to happen more, holidays or whatever? That's when you go for it and attach it. So yeah, it's a really good idea. But back to the consumer survey, you don't, pardon?
They haven't in last years.
Yeah.
So it's already study.
Okay, well, that's great. So you've got stuff that they're doing that you can maximise, and it's obviously from a really credible source, which makes it better for media. Okay, one more. Yeah, okay, good.
Piggybacking off, when you get Richard Branson to come to Australia.
Yes.
Okay, so Richard Branson comes down to Australia and he comes in.
Skydives in, yeah.
Virgin plane, so wherever he goes and visits in Australia, on his Virgin plane, he will promote those destinations.
I love it. And if anyone's got a Richard Branson idea, I'm totally open to it. So yeah, that's a great one. But you know, that is an example for me of creating something. You know, it's just my own personal dream, and it's sort of, you know, gone from there. And I've, you know, spent many hours of an evening on my lonesome plugging away at that. But yeah, you can come up with anything, because at the end of the day, people buy you. They buy you. Everyone in this room has competitors that probably do a similar thing. Of course, you're all doing it better because you're part of Breakthrough for Business, but you is what makes it different. So yeah, don't discount your own personal dreams and how others can be part of that too. Okay, well, we've come up with heaps and there's more. So please don't throw that piece of paper out. Keep it with you and plug away at it. I'm very happy for you to email me if you just want to bounce it around, but you've all got really valid opportunities. The next thing we have to do, just quickly, we talk about the icing on the PR cake. So you've got your story, and we've actually talked a little bit about this, but journalists will often look for real life stories. And this lady down the front was just telling me an awesome story where she started doing coaching and has actually had someone go to your first workshop. And as a result of what she learned and heard, enrolled in a university degree the next day. Like, that is phenomenal. That is change of behaviour like that, and that's a great story. So real life stories, think about your customers and the feedback that they're giving you. You know, you can see testimonials on websites and whatever else, but they are really powerful. Celebrities, when we talk about celebrities, I'm not talking about, Kylie Minogue or Richard Branson, people locally that people know. We're doing a campaign with Shoalhaven Tourism where we're looking at some of the local surfing legends that are down there. So it doesn't have to be people that are unattainable, it can be ones that we've got in our backyard you can work with. And experts, and that is you, and we've already sort of spoken about that with Will, but any of you will be valuable because you know more about your industry and your business than a journalist ever will. So don't discount the power of you and the opinion that you have. This is in your book, a word of advice. If you are getting people to be involved in media or provide testimonials that you'll use on social media or websites, please use that form or at least adapt it for your own purposes. I have had instances where people will verbally say, yeah, I'm really happy for you to have that story, pitch it to Women's Day or whatever else, and it appears and they're not happy. Now, once it leaves your hands, what a journalist does with it is their discretion, but just cover yourself in terms of getting permission. And it can be a friend, it can be family, whatever, just do it because it's worth it in the end. If something does go wrong, you're at least covered with some sort of documentation that says what you agreed. Okay, so we've got our story and I want you to pick one that you've just told me, the one that you think is probably the most crystallised in your mind, and we're going to talk about how we actually create something that we can pitch to media. How am I going? Yep, half an hour. 20? Yep, okay. So as PR people, when we're putting together a story, we talk about bottoms up. And it's very hard sometimes for people to get their heads around this because as human beings, we're so accustomed to starting at the beginning and telling the whole beautiful long story and then we get to the end. However, we're dealing with journalists who are time poor, and in regional areas, they are increasingly time poor. Newsrooms have been cut right back. A lot of it's interstate or offshore. They really don't have time to go through 3 pages love letter about your business and what you're doing and why the hell they should care. So you need to start with the end in mind. Start with the crux of what it is, and then you can go into the things that are helpful, more, if you want a bit more, and then the things that are nice to know. That, yeah, it'd be great if they read it, but actually if they don't get that far, it doesn't matter, they've still got the crux of it. So crucial information at the beginning, and remember, they could stop reading at any time. And we do this with our clients. We'll actually fold a media release up or a little email pitch and just read the first paragraph. And if it doesn't hit the nail on the head, it's wrong. We have to make sure that the information in that, if we just saw that in the paper or it was mentioned on radio, we'd be really, really happy with it. So it's hard, but it helps you to still write down to what it is you're trying to communicate. I talk about the Cinderella analogy because the story of Cinderella is really long-winded. She's got no money, she's cleaning, it's terrible, she's got horrible sisters, stepmom's a nightmare, and then she gets this invitation to the ball and the fairy godmother comes along and off they go to the ball and it's lovely, and then she says goodbye because she's going to turn into a pumpkin and she uses the slipper, blah, 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 and then happily ever after. Now, if I was to write that down, that's a really, really long story to tell to a journalist who's got 2 minutes, 1 or 2 minutes. We have to start with the beginning, which is this amazing story of this poor girl with very little prospects who, through a weird twist of fate, is swept off her feet by the most handsome, eligible man in the land. That's it. And then we can go into all the nice to haves, which is about the ball and the glass slipper and the fairy godmother. And then we can talk about, the bitchy stepsisters and whatever else, but that's kind of irrelevant to the crux of the story. So if you get stuck, just read a story backwards. And whatever's in that last kind of chapter is what you need to come up with for your business. We work with scientists a lot, and it's really hard for them because they deal with research papers and they really want to tell you all the methodology and, all the different interim endpoints. It's like, oh my gosh, just tell me the end. So it can be really hard. But this is all you need to capture in that first paragraph. Who, what, when, where, why. So just write those words down for your particular opportunity and just write a sentence about each of them. I don't want you to wordsmith it. I just want you to write what it is. So what is it you're talking about? Where is it? Why? Why is it important, or why should a journalist care? How and who? 1 minute, off you go. Okay, we don't have time to go through all of those, but if you haven't finished it, make sure that you do, because that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so step 3 is contacting the media. And this is the bit where people get scared. And I will admit, when I started in PR, I was scared to pick up the phone and speak to a journalist. The Good news is most journalists are really lovely and they're just people. That's the first thing. We're not talking about, investigative journalists here. We're talking about people who you're giving a gift to. You are putting an idea in a box and you're presenting it in a way that they want to have, and you're putting a neat bow on it and saying, here you go, time poor, stretched journalist. I'm coming to you with something that fits all your criteria and is ready to go. And guess what? I'm an expert in my field too. And they will be high-fiving each other and be so pleased to hear from you. I guarantee it, because we do it every single day in my business. They are very busy people. So what I'm going to teach you now is going to make sure that you give them what they want in the most efficient way. As lovely as they can be, they do not have time to sit on the phone to you for half an hour and hear your life story, and you don't even need them to do that. They'll get to know you over time. That's what a newsroom used to look like. So, they'd sit around with typewriters and, everyone was in a little space. This is what it looks like now. So that's actually one of the Fairfax newsrooms in capital city. I don't know if it's Sydney or Brisbane, but they're all working together. Digital teams, print teams, moving vision teams, they're all communicating, and it's fast paced. Can you imagine working in there and trying to focus on what you're doing? It would just be crazy. I know at the Mercury that they have screens up where they actually track what stories are trending online, so they can see a spike if something goes up, and then they pump out the SEO to make sure that it's higher up, or they adjust things. So it's just this constant moving feast, which is exciting to be part of because it means they're always looking for new content, but you've got to do it in a way that's going to be interesting for them. Timing really is everything. And when we talk about timing from a media perspective, we're talking about the hours of the day. So if you are going to send an email to a journalist, either do it between 6 and 8 in the morning or do it after 3 o'clock. The reason that we do that is at 10 o'clock, Win News or I-98 slightly different because they're on the hour, but certainly the Mercury as well, and this will be true for any of the media outlets that deal with news as well as features. They're having a media conference at 10 where they pitch the story ideas they've got for the day, and that's when the editor will decide who goes out on the road, who stay in the office, what stories can be held over to the next day. So you want to make sure your idea is in before they go into that conference. Otherwise, do it afterwards, because between sort of 11 and 3, they're doing interviews, they're filing stories, they're out on the road. You'll see the Win cars around during that period of time. There's no point. You've kind of missed the boat. So make sure that you get in at those two ends of the day. The calendar of events we've spoken about, so if you can hook it to something they're already thinking about, you're onto a winner. Lead times. Now this just links to if you're looking at magazines in particular. A lot of magazines are working to 6-month lead times. It's absolutely mental. Australian Women's Weekly right now will be thinking about Christmas. So print for me as a small business is not really a major focus, because you want to drive people to your website and online probably most of the time, and that's where people go, and it's much quicker and much more nimble. However, if you do want to get something in a magazine, you need to be planning it well in advance and have a strategy to get that out at this point, and then closer to the time you go to the more immediate news outlets or feature outlets. It's a 2-step process when we're talking about journalists. So you do email them first, but then you have to pick up the phone. And I have to say, with Catalyst, with our students, one of the biggest challenges I have had is getting them to pick up the phone, because people are averse to having conversations because of social media. And I'm not necessarily saying it's us, but certainly the younger generation, it's a real struggle and there's a fear attached to it. But if you've got your story ready to go and you've pitched it appropriately and they've got the email, then you're actually just ringing to confirm what you've sent and add some value as part of that call. This is the email pitch. I don't know if we share these slides, Stephen, but you can certainly have that. That's exactly how we send out email pitches. In fact, we're doing it today, right now, for 2 clients to local media. So you just have to fill in the blanks. So insert story idea is what. Whatever you've written down as your what is the story idea. Always put the name of the media outlet. When I first started, we used to call it spray and pray, where you just send a blanket email and you back copy everyone in. You wouldn't tailor anything. Those days are long gone. So if you're sending it to the Mercury, put to the Illawarra Mercury. If you're sending it to South Coast Style, put them in. It's just a compliment more than anything. You've taken time to think about it. And then put why it's relevant to the journalist, and that's your why. Whatever you've put down, that's what you need to put, and that's really, really important. Why should that journalist write about this story? Then you go on to say what you can offer, the icing on the cake. experts for interview, which could be yourself, local case studies including, and this is where you just give them a hint of who it is. So it could be Lisa, who's 40, who runs a PR consultancy and she's got something to add. Attach a photo, and when I say a photo, it can be off your phone. It doesn't have to be professional. In fact, most of the time they quite like the ones that are a little bit more raw. And then if you'd like more information, and I will call you soon to gauge your interest. Always say you'll call them soon, because they're probably not going to call you unless they love it. And if they love it, they'll pick up the phone straight away. But make it active that you're going to be in touch, so they know, okay, that person's going to contact me, and then you do it. So if you send it out in the morning between whatever I said, 6 and 8, you call them at 9:30. Give them half an hour to get their feet under the desk, but you call them then and say, have you got my media release, but you also do all of this. And this is the verbal pitch. So when I say you call and say, have you got my media release, that probably is one of the most annoying things to a journalist set in isolation, because they're like, yes, I've got it. You need to add value with the call. So you need to write down what you plan to say, and that's pretty much what you've got in front of you right now. Ask for a specific journalist if you can, and online makes our job so much easier. You can just find the name of who's writing stories about your particular industry and contact them because they're already interested. Briefly state why you're calling, and at this stage I would say, this is the story, you may have seen my email, and here's some more about it in terms of a case study, the photo opportunity you can offer them, the fact you've got people lined up ready to go. That's exciting to someone who's time poor. Alternative angles. So they might go, I like it, but I'm not sure. So perhaps have 1 or 2 other ways that you could spin the story, which might be talking more about a photo opportunity, which might be highlighting your case study a little bit more. But be prepared for them not to necessarily go, yay, straight away, and have a conversation with them. And that's where the fun bit comes in. And always say thank you. That's really important, and a lot of the time people don't do it. We always email afterwards when they've run a story to say thank you, because this is the start of a relationship, not a one-off hit.
Lisa, do you find it's a numbers game sometimes, or do you find that if you're really determined to get your story out there, you'll just like to adapt and make it as appealing as it can be? But do you find that you do get lots of no's?
No, we don't. And the reason is, well, partly because I've done it so long, I just know. I gut feel know whether it's a story or not, but also I read a lot and I watch a lot and I take it all in. So you've almost got to become a little bit of a media expert for the area you want to be. And it's very formulaic, as I said. And the other thing, Lauren, it's a really good question, is what I've taught you today, you're going to them with it in a way that I know will stick. There's no stories fall outside of those 3 buckets ever. And if you can link it to something topical, then they're going to love it, unless it's a complete dud. But what I've heard in this room today says to me that you know yourselves what you like to read. We're all consuming media every day. So, I don't think any of you would have a problem if you follow what I've asked you to do.
What Lauren just said there is a numbers game. I find, yes, it is a numbers game, but you're
Okay, yep.
Advertise, and they virtually say straight out, oh yeah, we can print that, so how can that be put in with it?
Yep, so the way Fairfax journalists have been briefed is if they see a brand name in a press release more than once, they have to send it straight to advertising. They're a business and they're looking to make money, so absolutely. This is where you need to be a little bit clever with the story. You need to, for example, with you, this lady who's had this amazing experience with you, the story can't be necessarily about you. The story has to be about her. And then you weave in your bit at the end. You can put a little bit of information about your business at the bottom, or you might already have it in your email signature. So that will happen naturally. If you're quoted in a story, then you're quoted as the spokesperson for your business. Keep the brand mentions fairly low. Think about the story over there. 5 minutes. I could go on for weeks about this stuff. It's a good point about the level of branding. Just try and keep it down. Make it about this, which then links to you over here. Keep a record, and this is in your book as well. So presumably most of you will be the person that's talking to journalists or, talking about a story. But if you're in a bigger team and someone else is doing it, one of the pitfalls is you kind of forget who you've spoken to and what you've said to them. Or you might talk to them one day and say, oh, you know what, Tammy, I just need you to pick that up for me tomorrow. And she's like, oh, where's it at? And you're like, oh my gosh, I actually don't really remember what I said and what I sent. And it's a really basic thing just to make sure you keep a track. And also you can look back on it in a few months if you're pitching another story and go, oh, that's right. Carolyn at The Independent, she said she really liked that. So maybe I can go back to her with that in the future. It's a basic thing, but it does make a big difference. So, Whew, I know that's a lot, but that's it. That's it. That is all you need to do to get some coverage in the local paper or on the radio. And I want you to all, as I said, listen to what is going on, and you'll start to see it happening and see that everyone's following the same pattern as everyone else. But some final words of advice. Source bottle. In your books as well, there is some information about source bottle and a template that you can use that we use with our clients every single day. So all you have to do is fill in the blanks. Source bottle, I don't know if anyone has been on source bottle. Anyone? Lauren, you probably have because you've heard me speak about it. Yep. It's a great one where you, journalists basically put what they're looking for, and you can filter it depending on your industry and things that you are potentially an expert in, and also things around you as a business owner. They're always looking for small business owners, entrepreneurs, things happening in regional Australia. Stephen and I have done some work on it for him, and he's seen the results that can come from Source Bottle. You've got to keep at it though. Every day you'll get an email, and if you aim to pitch for one story every day, you won't get one story every day, but you'll start to get traction. And as your profile increases and you've got examples of where you've added value to a journalist, they'll start coming to you, and that's the tipping point where the seesaw goes from you working really hard to them coming to you, and that's a lovely place to be. So go on to Source Bottle and have a look. Do your profile, put it as an action for next week. Radio announcements, we hear I-98 talking about events and things going on in the community. That's all free. They've all got events listings on websites that you can tap into for free. Letters to the editors. If something is happening and you have an opinion about it and you're brave enough to share it, write a letter to the editor. The email address for the editor is on websites, or it's mainly for print and online rather than TV and radio. But if they see it, they might pick it up too, because they're all, Win TV, read the Mercury every morning. So whatever's in there, you'll often see on TV in the evenings. Start following media. And I've just put up local media, but it could be industry media, it could be magazines you want to be in, and look at the kind of stories they're posting and what they're looking for. You'll start to see a common thread you can tap into. I've mentioned that journalists are looking for stories online. So if your Facebook page or your website isn't great, then get onto it. I know the ninjas and Stephen will be able to help and talk about that a lot as well. But whatever you put on Facebook is an opportunity, and I see that again with my own business where they start to contact you because they can see what's happening. Final word. If you can be one thing, always be relevant. And that's that beautiful sweet spot where what you want to say and what a journalist or the media want to write about crosses over. And that's back to your point about branding and advertising. So you might start over here with a really branded story, but if you just take it down a notch and then you find yourself in this spot, that's where you'll get success, and it's not very hard to do. So that is like 20 years of stuff just blurted out to you. We haven't had long together, but you've got some sheets. I am a very approachable person. Most of you who know me will know that. So feel free to email me or via Stephen with any questions that you have, and I'm happy to help you because I am genuinely so in love with my job and the power of PR that I want to help people like you because you're just like me. So thank you very much for your time. Look, emotion.
All right, good job. Well done. Thank you, Lisa.